Welcome to today's podcast. This is your Rubies of Grace host, Rose Nyama. Rubies of Grace podcast promote the principles of love, respect, mutual agreement, unity, integrity, and trust within our diverse relationships. We're God's jewels beautifully crafted to radiate His image and light in this world. It is such a pleasure to be sharing this podcast on Relationships Matter with you. I do hope that you can come with me on this journey for us to better our relationships because relationships matter. For the past few podcast series, we've been dealing with certain cases on relationship matters. So we looked at the case of loss of intimacy, the case of communication breakdown, the case of infidelity and breach of trust, and we've looked at the case of emotional abuse. And today, we'll be looking at a case of cross-cultural relationships. And like I mentioned, we're using fictitious names, which are not examples of a real life case, but could represent real life cases that you might be familiar with, you might be involved in, or you might know somebody who's experiencing this. So I do hope that as we look through these case studies, there'll be something for you to learn for yourself or for somebody else to improve your relationship because relationships matter. So, for our case study, we'll be considering the relationship between Aisha and Nduka. So, both of them come from different cultural backgrounds. They deeply love each other, but there's tension around wedding traditions, religious observances, and expectations from both families. Though Aisha and Ndoka are deeply in love, wedding planning has triggered unspoken conflicts and emotional friction in their relationships. Cultural and religious differences are impacting their relationship harmony, and this can be referred to cultural adjustment stress. I don't know if you've heard that before. Cultural adjustment stress. So, key issues we can identify from this case study is that there are disagreements over religious rituals and family involvement. And I would say that navigating cultural identity, language barriers, or discrimination adds extra layers of pressure. There is tension around whether to have a traditional ceremony. Both families are exacting their influence, and this external influence is unsettling to Aisha and Nduka. Family expectations. In many cultures, family plays a major role in a couple's decision and their daily life. Conflicts with in laws or pressure to conform to family expectations can add a layer of stress. Aisha's parents expect a faith based and culturally respectful wedding, while Nduka's family is indifferent and slightly dismissive of religious formality. Conflict over future children's religious upbringing. There is a feeling of being misunderstood or marginalized, and this can increase emotional distance. So, for this couple, their once easy romantic bond now feels strained. Aisha feels torn between honoring her family and identity and building a new life with Ndoka. Ndoka, on the other hand, feels pressured and misunderstood. Hence, he finds himself questioning whether cultural compromise means losing himself. So, we have a few questions we're going to consider to help us analyze this case. So, the first question is, how can they honor both cultures while maintaining unity? First of all, I think it's best to start with the first question. Is it possible to honor both cultures while maintaining unity? What are your thoughts? Do you think it's possible to honor both cultures while maintaining unity? No matter your answers, yes or no, as long as you have proof of why you made that choice, that's fair. So if you said yes, then the next question is then how can they honor both cultures while maintaining in their unity. So, in cross cultural relationships, honor can refer to a person's self worth and social standing within that relationship. Note that this can differ significantly in value and importance across diverse cultures. What could constitute honor, if I should say? What could constitute honorable behavior in one culture might be relevant or even detrimental in another cultural setting. Hence, individuals that are in a cross cultural relationship need to have an understanding of the specific cultural definition of honor within each partner's background, as this is crucial for avoiding misunderstandings and building mutual respect. Honoring both cultures in cross cultural or intercultural partnerships requires mutual respect, intentional communication, and shared meaning or values to maintain unity in that relationship. Cultural differences don't have to cause division. Unity can be maintained when the cultural differences are approached with care. Cultural differences can enrich the relationship. It can foster a deeper bond rooted in understanding and inclusion. We can consider different cultural understandings of honor. So, in the Middle Eastern, South Asian, African, or East Asian societies, where they exhibit a collectivist culture, within these societies, honor is tied to family reputation, community perception, and fulfilling traditional roles. So, with the collectivist cultures, a person's actions reflect on their whole family or community. This also increases the external influence of family or community on that individual. If we look at the Western Europe or North America settings or that part of the world where they exhibit individualist cultures, this frames honor in terms of personal integrity, authenticity, and individual dignity rather than communal reputation. So, can you see a wide difference or wide variation between the collectivist culture seen in Middle Eastern, South Asian, African, or East Asian societies when you compare to the individualistic culture mostly seen in Western Europe and North America? So this can tell you that individuals who grew up in a collectivist culture obviously may have certain values or may honor differently or may view honor differently than an individual who grew up in an individualist culture. So honor and relationship within cross-cultural relationships, it's something to be looked into, considered carefully. In most platonic, familial, and romantic relationships, honor shapes expectation about loyalty, fidelity, gender roles, and public behavior. In collectivist cultures, a partner's actions might bring pride or shame to their family, not just to themselves. And this may be strange to comprehend for a person that grew up being exposed to individualist culture. In friendships or professional relationships, honor might relate to keeping one's word, showing respect across hierarchies, or observing hospitality norms. The interplay of collectivist cultures and individualist cultures can cause tension in cross cultural relationships. We will highlight some of these and then consider how to mitigate these tensions from getting out of hand. There could be clashes in values. One partner may value personal freedom, while the other places higher importance on family approval. What can we do to foster unity? We can choose to acknowledge and respect the differences, obviously, without judgment or prejudice. Cultural differences can be used positively to deepen intimacy when these cultural differences are approached with curiosity and care. What about gender expectations? Honor may be linked to women's modesty and men's roles as protectors in some cultures. This can feel restrictive or unfamiliar to someone from a different background. In this case, what should be done to foster unity rather than create division? So I'll say rather than trying to erase or neutralize cultural differences, couples should endeavor to affirm each other's values, customs, and worldview. They should recognize these differences that exist among them and appreciate that this does not mean deficiency. Communication styles. What one culture considers honorable respect, such as the use of indirect speech, deference to elders, and tone of voice. In another culture, these same communication styles might be seen as evasive or insincere. I advise that individuals in a relationship that comes from cross-cultural backgrounds or interracial backgrounds should have open conversations about cultural identity and meanings and explore the traditions, holidays, or practices that feel most sacred to them. They need to explore what family means in their respective cultures. They need to explore how conflict is handled where they come from. And it will be good to consider the roles gender, religion, or community play in their values. Note that having these conversations are so vital because these conversations make core values visible and, of course, will help the partners or the friends to understand the why behind certain behaviors. This mutual understanding mitigates tension that could have easily arisen from clashes from values, gender expectations, and communication styles. Navigating cultural gaps can effectively build up that relationship positively. It can become moments within that relationship of emotional closeness through shared childhood memories, foods, or music. Navigating cultural gaps effectively can lead to growth in these relationships through learning new perspectives, customs, or languages from each other. Navigating cultural gaps effectively through storytelling can create moments of connection or rapport. You can explore several aspects of each other, especially their background, their experiences, their values. An example is exploring questions such as tell me about your grandmother's prayers. Tell me about your childhood folklore that represents traditional beliefs, your customs, stories, songs, and other expressive cultures shared by a particular group of people passed down through generations. Honor in cross-cultural relationships can be maintained respectfully when we recognize that each partner's views of honor is valid within their culture, hence promoting mutual respect among them. When you find shared grounds in the relationship through balancing family expectations with personal autonomy, and this can be resolved through negotiation. When you talk about what honor means to each other through open conversations, promoting understanding among the individuals and eliminating assumptions and misunderstandings. When you understand that honor is deeply emotional and often tied to identity and belonging. And having considered honor in cross-cultural or interracial relationships among friends, partners, in this relationship, you can have open conversations and consider how these can, or how both of you rather, can work towards creative, effective ways to integrate your different traditions to ultimately create a third culture together. You can blend rituals for holidays, weddings, or family events. You can celebrate both sets of holidays or alternate years if needed. You can cook meals from both backgrounds. You can raise your children with dual exposure to language, stories, values, etc. Conflicts over culture often reflect underlying fears of losing identity or disrespect in the individuals affected. Hence, there is a need to address tensions respectfully to maintain unity. You need to acknowledge when something feels uncomfortable or foreign. Discuss it respectfully. Avoid assuming your way is the normal or the right way, and also avoid blaming the other person. I came across this finding about a compromise that I want to share with us. In cross-cultural relationships, compromise is the act of weaving together different threads into a beautiful shared tapestry. With compromise, both cultures become visible, valued, and vibrant. Imagine that artwork where both cultures, both traditions, both shared values because of the compromise. All these cultures will become visible, valued, and vibrant. When this is displayed in your family, in your home, it's a beautiful art to observe. Compromise is often the bridge that helps partners navigate differences while building a shared life that honors both backgrounds. As such, it plays a central and vital role in cross-cultural relationships. Having mentioned compromise, a question to consider in cross-cultural or interracial relationships is there any role compromise plays in such relationships? Yes, we've answered this already. Compromise helps friends or partners in a cross-cultural relationship to balance their different expectations. Culture can often come with distinct traditions, values, and ways of doing things. We've talked about holidays, family roles, communication styles, etc. Compromise will help partners or friends to negotiate with traditions to prioritize, adapt, or blend so that neither culture feels sidelined. Decisions can be made by the friends or the partners to either celebrate both partners' holidays or to alternate their visits with extended families, or even the decision to blend their cultural rituals. That is the rule of compromise. Compromise can foster mutual respect, but it requires listening to each other to understand each other. So when each partner makes concessions, it shows respect for the other person's heritage and feelings, also reinforcing safety and trust, which is essential for intimacy. But note, concessions should be mutual. Avoid power imbalance. That is not healthy. Compromise can help to create a shared culture, or what I might call a third culture. You blend your cultures, you blend your heritage, and you create your or co-create your personalized third culture, which becomes a mix of your customs, your values that will work for your relationship. This third culture is uniquely crafted, mutual culture that is flexible, that reflects both partners' identities and priorities because it is co-created. Compromise diffuses tension by finding solutions when partners feel unheard and valued. Hence, it prevents power struggles. So without compromise, cultural differences can become battlegrounds for either dominance or resentment. Compromise is a practical way to navigate conflicts constructively, hence encouraging problem solving rather than avoidance or escalation. Key considerations about compromise. We've mentioned compromise should be mutual. It's not about one partner always giving in while the other partner dominates. Compromise is about sacrificing essential needs, some values or boundaries So it should not be about sacrificing essential needs, rather. Some values or boundaries are non negotiable. Hence, they should be respected. Don't sacrifice them. Compromise leads to communicating clearly. So when you have clear discussions, it will help to avoid misunderstandings about what is not or what is flexible. And a healthy compromise doesn't mean giving up your core values or your cultural identity. Rather, it's about the flexibility in less central areas so that both partners feel honored and authentic. Compromise should provide a safe, neutral space for dialogue. That is what you do. And if you're struggling with this, you can seek for help. There are counselors that are skilled in intercultural dynamics, and they can help you to create this environment where both partners will feel heard. If you consider that enhancing cultural awareness and understanding will reduce misunderstanding and build empathy in your relationship. It will also help you to facilitate effective communication, to avoid common pitfalls like misinterpreting cultural behaviors or unspoken expectations. It will support identity integration because it will encourage both individuals, despite their cultural roots, to have a shared culture. When you have a compromise, it will guide you through life transitions so that whether it is your marriage, your parenting, relocation, you can adapt these changes in a culturally sensitive way. So for us, the bottom line for today's podcast is that intercultural communication, compromise, mutual understanding can help to build strong, respectful, and loving relationships across the cultural divides. I do hope that today's podcast will ignite a desire to nurture your relationships and consider areas where you need to make a change, adapt, or perhaps add more juice, which means to add power, vigor, energy, interest, excitement. Tune in for more. Until next time, do your best because relationships matter.